Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Hope you're doing well here on this fine Thursday morning. What is the date today? 28th, 27th, 28th of August, 2025. I'm actually going to see the 50th anniversary of Jaws is this year, for those people that don't know. One of the local theaters is playing it. I've never seen the original Jaws in the theater because I was only a couple years old when the movie came out. So seen it a bunch of times, obviously, at home and all that. But I'm going this Saturday to see it in the theater, which would be a really fun experience. Hopefully you've got some nice plans, nice fun things to do this weekend. Maybe that includes drafting. Maybe that includes putting together your first football team or your home league or something like that. We're at that time of year as well. And today we'll continue to do what we can to help you put a good team together. That's the goal here on the show, and that's what we're going to do. Over the next hour, we'll talk some baseball and football. You can see it there on the screen. Again, I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. We're here Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Many ways to consume the show. You can type Fantasy Sports Daily into your podcast network. You can head over to FantasyGuru.com and click the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page and find all the shows on the Elite Plus network, including this one. You can go to youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork, Facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ, or Twitter X @FantasyGuru site. And if you go to any of those three places that I just mentioned, the last three, Twitter X, Facebook, YouTube, you can watch the show live. And if you're watching live, you can leave comments and questions that we'll address throughout the show. And you can always watch a show on demand because it's always available there in those three spots as well. Again, I'm Ray Flowers. You can follow me on social media platforms, pretty much all of them, @the Ray Flowers. You can find me over in Discord at FantasyGuru.com, answering football and baseball questions every single day. We're still doing baseball. We'll talk baseball here the first half hour of the show. The second half hour of the show, we'll talk some football with Tyler Buecher, but still doing both. Remember, the rankings come out at final time. The updated rankings for the seasonal format come out on September 1st, which is next week. We've got the DFS articles. We've got the wagering. All that stuff will continue as the football season begins. My participation pulls back a little bit as football gets going, but we'll still have the staff taking care of you, and I will still be involved every day and answering those questions on a daily basis over at FantasyGuru.com. Next week is a big week. Obviously, it's week 1 of the NFL season. Things will remain the same here on the show for one more week. Once we start technically the second week of the NFL season, which is still week 1 because of Monday Night Football, things will change a little bit, but we'll talk a little bit about that next week. Today, we'll talk about rotation changes, and this is, we're at that time of year in particular where people are trying to, and this is why setting lineups on a Monday and those kind of setups, and I'm in those leagues, not great because teams change. This is why, picking guys up off the waiver wire, looking at certain matchups, especially guys you're hoping to get 2 starts. It doesn't always happen. We'll talk about some changes that some of the rotations in baseball are making because they're just making changes because of injuries as well. We'll talk about Ryan Bergert, who we talked about earlier this week. He came through for us. We'll talk about Brian Wu. We'll talk about all the injuries that the Brewers are dealing with. Nathan Eovaldi, speaking of injuries. Eric Lauer went back in the rotation. Woof. Cole Ragans got an update on him physically. Good news. Luis Robert got an update on him. Bad news. Rafael Devers, just kind of checking in with him, see how he's doing with the Giants. Mark Vientos and Adolis Garcia. So those are some of the topics we'll talk about when it comes to baseball. And then in about 25 minutes, we will talk football with Tyler Buecher. Yesterday on the show, Rich Mileto and I broke down the situation with the Chiefs. Want to give Tyler his shot to talk about the Rashee Rice 6-game suspension and what that means. We'll talk about what's going on in the Niners receiving core, Marvin, Mims, Pat Bryant, Troy Finken. What about the number 2 behind Sutton in Denver? Adam Thielen goes to Minnesota. Does that mean anything? Probably not. But what does it do to Carolina's receivers? We'll talk to Tyler about that. What's going on in Pittsburgh? Who's the number 2 behind DK Metcalf? What about the veterans, Stafford and Mixon? And what's the deal with Audric, Estime, and CEH? Either of those guys matter in a dynasty or keeper league. Now that they're new with their new teams. We'll talk about that with Tyler here in about 25 minutes. Remember, I was just talking about football. It's going. It's hot and heavy right now, answering questions daily, posting articles daily, updating rankings daily. It's all available right now over at FantasyGuru.com. Of course, it's been available for months. And frankly, we never stop covering any sport, including football. It's year round. But if you get the fantasy football product now because you had a draft this weekend, you're behind. We missed you the last couple of months. You're behind. There's a lot of information there that you're not going to be able to get to. Hopefully, you'll continue to brush up as we go through the week and into next week when the season actually starts. But we got you. We got the rankings available, PPR rankings, non-PPR rankings, half-point PPR rankings, super flex rankings, tight end premium rankings, dynasty league rankings, rookie rankings, IDP rankings, best ball rankings. We got all that stuff over at fantasyguru.com. We've got the Discord where you can ask your questions. We've got all the articles talking about everything you need to know about over at fantasyguru.com. So go to FG, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. When you do that, you can find links to any of the sports, including baseball. You can buy all the baseball stuff. It's one price for the final month. Send a note to support@fantasyguru.com if you want that. And you can always send a note about any questions you have about any of the products to support@fantasyguru.com. But we're there to help you out. And we're ready to help you out. And we will help you out. So give us the opportunity to do that. Okay, let's talk some pitching here. I mentioned the fact that we got things changing. Spencer Strider is supposed to make 2 starts this week. He's not. He's getting moved back to the series opener next Monday at Wrigley Field for the Braves. The Braves are going to go with Kyle Quantrill today, Bryce Elder on Friday. Looks like Chris Sale's going to return on Saturday. That's the hope, with Houston Waldrop starting Sunday. Now, again, this is a theme we're going to talk about here. It's going to be a common theme, and it's why I caution people in particular. I love, hey, Ray, I'm looking at the second week of September, and I'm trying to figure out pitching. I love that thought process, and that's the way you should be. You should be proactive. We talk about it all the time. You don't want to wait until it's time and then try to battle everyone else to make it happen. The problem is some teams are falling out of the race. Some teams are worried about workloads, either with veterans or young guys. Some teams want to give a look to, this guy or that guy. It's going to be a mess in September. It's already been a mess to get here, but it's going to be a mess in September. The Braves doing a little bit of a tweak here. Nothing major, but a little bit of a tweak. And again, like Strider, who pitched great, who we talked about earlier this week, not making 2 starts this week. He's not making 1. So it's what we're going to have to live with. The Blue Jays, who we'll talk about Eric Lauer here in a few minutes. The Blue Jays decided to push back Jose Berrios in his next start. So what we're going to get is we're going to get Bieber, Gausman, Scherzer. Then next week, we're going to get Bassett and Berrios against the Reds. So Jose Berrios is going to get his start pushed back a couple of days. They're just going to give him a little bit more time. But that's another situation that's changing. And again, we don't know if they're staying with the 6-man rotation or not after what happened with Eric Lauer. Again, we'll talk about it. Orioles interim manager Tony Mansolino said that the Orioles the rest of the way are very likely to go with the 6-man rotation. Okay, so that's Kyle Bradish, who we talked about, return had been dynamic in that first effort. Trevor Rogers, use the word dynamic with Trevor Rogers seems ridiculous, but he's been a Cy Young caliber performer since he's back, so he'll be the next guy up. Sagano, still going to hold a spot down. Dean Kremer's going to hold a spot down. Tyler Wells is going to hold a spot down. Now, we'll see. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. We'll see what happens here with the 6 because Young is injured and all that. But the bottom line is the Orioles are planning on going 6-man rotation. So no matter who that 6th person is, all the names I mentioned are going to have a little bit extra time between starts. Doesn't matter for Kremer or Wells or Sagano in most leagues. But Rogers and Bradish, they're getting 1 start a week. That's probably how we're going to see it play out the rest of the way for the Orioles. The Red Sox, well, there's a chance that Dustin May doesn't start tomorrow. Maybe they push it back to Saturday. He's one of these guys we've talked about where the workload's starting to get up, especially for him because he's missed so much time with injuries over the years. The workload's blowing past previous levels and all that kind of stuff. Red Sox, Kyle Harrison, Richard Fitz, bullpen day, Dustin May. It's another situation that's in flux. And this, again, is just going to be where we're at. So it's going to be more important than ever to pay close attention to the news reports because the waiver wire is going to get dicey. Setting lineups is going to get dicey. And you're going to need to be nimble. And we've talked about it a lot. Really winning in fantasy baseball is about having a good team. But it's also about working hard. It's never been more accurate than it is in 2025. You got to work hard. If you're not going to work hard, you're going to have a hard time winning in fantasy baseball. The Brewers, Trevor Megill was placed on the injured list with a right flexor strain in his forearm. He claims, and because he's had this type of injury before, he claims it's not a big deal. They're just giving him a rest, and he's going to be back in 15 days. That's what he claims. Is that reality? We will find out. It's often not. As we talk about a lot. When a player tells you he's hurt, he's hurt. When a player says he's going to be fine, where's the truth? So your Abner Uribe's got to be the guy we think of as the guy that's going to step up, get some save opportunities. He's been absolutely phenomenal here for the Brewers all season long, including in the second half. Hopefully Megill is back in 2 weeks. Hopefully. That's what they're saying. That's what he's saying now. Again, I don't know if that's reality, but that's what he's saying now. Logan Henderson, who they've been worried about all season long, been managing. Remember, he started out well and had those 4 or 5 great starts, and they demoted him. They've been monitoring his workload, called up a while back, had a good start. He's been transferred from the 15-day injury list to the 60-day injury list with the elbow issue. He's done for the season. So Logan Henderson's done for 2025. He's out. Okay. Quinn Priester, who's been absolutely phenomenal. He's been one of these waiver wire, much like Eric Lauer before last night. One of these guys you picked up the waiver wire and said, what the hell, let's see what happens. I didn't do that. I had bid on him and he was down on the bidding tree and I didn't get him. Wish I had, because he's been fantastic. Well, he didn't pitch yesterday because of a wrist issue. They're saying he's got a chance to pitch Saturday. So we'll watch this with Priester. He's been pitching over his head anyway. He's not a big strikeout arm. We know that. The wrist is there. Things. Brewers have been fantastic. They're looking to get Churio back soon, all these kind of things. But we do know, as we talked about, that this pitching staff teetering a little bit right now in the health department. Ryan Bergert, who we talked about on Monday, who we said, look, Ray, maybe I should have gotten a couple extra bucks on Fab. Maybe I'll regret it. Well, regretted it. Hopefully you picked up Bergert based upon the information we talked about earlier this week, because he went out and had 6 innings and 1-run baseball against the White Sox yesterday. I think it's the first time he's completed 6 innings this year. He was doing the 5-inning thing. He got through 6. Not only a quality start, gave up 1 run there. Pitched pretty effectively. His next outing is against the Angels. Angels do hit righties better than lefties, but that's not necessarily a scary matchup either here. And, this is another one of these players. It's going to be needed. We'll talk about his teammate Cole Ragans in a few minutes. It's going to be needed, right? Because, we're all in this zone where, again, we're searching, we're hunting. Ryan Bergert is a guy that should be added up the waiver wire out there. We talked about it earlier this week. I'm reiterating, but we want to add him. We'll start him in his next effort against the Angels. All these other rotations and staffs are changing. He's a guy that it seems like we can count on a little bit now. He's very much in the Priester zone. He's very much in the Lauer zone. He's not going to go out there and generate a ton of strikeouts and have many dominant efforts. Even last night, he gave up 6 hits and a couple of walks in the 6 innings, so he wasn't perfect. There's going to be contact against him, and he's going to try to pitch his way through it. For the most part, he's been very good at that. Doesn't have the ideal profile, but he's in a nice groove, and when he's in a winnable matchup, we can use him. I think the Angels matchup coming up would be a winnable matchup. Next up is Bryan Woo, who, for those of you that have followed me for years, thank you. You'll remember breakout pitcher of the year last year. He did break out. We didn't technically call it a victory. I don't think I technically called it a victory in the article this year because he missed time with injury, but he broke out last year. And I love the fact that everyone was in on him this year. We had him last year, right? That's the key, right, is getting the guy a year ahead. This year, everyone was in on Woo, and he's been terrific. And he gave up 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings last night. And I don't know if you've been following this. I've tweeted it out again at the Ray Flowers. I've tweeted it out before and mentioned it here and there. I think I even put it in an article. Bryan Woo last night, first time this season, he didn't go 6 innings. He missed by 1 out. I mean, in 2025, making 25 starts of 6 innings and then missing a 26 by 1 out is pretty remarkable. I mean, that even if he wasn't as good as he is, just doing that, right? Now, he's made 26 starts and he's walked 31 guys. That's remarkable. He's got more than a strikeout an inning. There we go. He's been terrific. Now, he does have a difficult matchup next time out against the Rays in Tampa. We'll have to watch the weather there. The weather plays the big part. Obviously, we're not benching Woo. It doesn't matter anyway. But he's just been terrific. And I think he'd gone 25 starts with 6 innings pitched and 2 or fewer walks in each outing, which is like the first time it's happened since Cy Young in like 1906 or something. It's crazy. Something like that. I posted that somewhere. That sounds roughly accurate. Phenomenal last year. Even better this year. Bryan Woo's a star. Period. Nathan Eovaldi was having one of the best, he's having the best season of his career and one of the best seasons, I mean, in recent memory. This is not, and that's not, it's one thing to throw 130 innings at this level. It's another thing to throw 230 innings at that level. I get it. And he had a rough outing here. But he'd made 22 starts with a 1.7 ERA and a 0.85 whip. This is Paul Skeens plus kind of stuff. He's been absolutely 6-1 strikeout to walk ratio, not giving up any home runs, been fantastic. Unfortunately, his season is over. He's got a right rotator cuff strain. Chris Young, the president of the Rangers, said that's it. He's in theory, he could return at the end of the year, but it's almost certain he's done for the season. And this is not a shock for him because remember, though he threw 170 innings last year, he is a guy that's been injured off and on for a long time. He is 35 years old. It was not reasonable to expect him to replicate the numbers he threw last season. The 130 innings, was right in line with the 144 he threw in 2023. The performance was fantastic. You got to win with Eovaldi if you drafted him. You just did, right? Because he was so unbelievably good. But it's very likely his season is over, and that's a hole in a rotation for anyone that had been leaning on him. He and Jacob deGrom making 45 starts. Pretty good for the Rangers. Pretty good for us in fantasy, actually, too. Now to Eric Lauer. Eric Lauer has been really effective this season, period. 6 runs earned last night, but 8 overall. Give up 10 hits. They have 14 games in 15 days to the Blue Jays, so they went to a 6-man rotation. It's unclear if he's going to make a start the next time through. Remember, we talked earlier about the Blue Jays shuffling their lineup, the rotation, all that. Do they put Lauer in there to give everyone an extra day rest? Or is this beating it for him? So we don't have a clear situation, a clear read on this situation with Eric Lauer. The soft tossing lefty has a 3.2 ERA and a 1.13 WHIP, even after the beatdown yesterday. Those are still terrific numbers, and he's actually got almost a strikeout an inning. 24% K rate. He's actually been really good. He's been hit by the home run a little bit, which is, it's going to happen when you have a 50% home run to fly ball ratio. In fact, that number is bad. Okay. It's especially bad if you don't have like a 30% K rate, which he doesn't. Even at 1.36 home runs per 9, the 10.7% home run to fly ball ratio is still 3% below his career average. So there still could be a couple of big flies in his future here. But the bottom line is he's done a great job for the Blue Jays, and he's been a terrific fill-in. But we don't know when he's going to take the hill next. We don't know his role is going to be the rest of the way. I imagine a lot of you rage dropped him, and I can't say it's necessarily a bad thing if you're in a shallow league, if you're in a head-to-head league, that kind of thing. But that was a rough effort last night for Eric Lauer. Returning to the Royals, Cole Ragans has got the shoulder issue. He's on the sidelines. Good news. Through a 20-pitch bullpen session yesterday, coming back from that shoulder injury, felt good. Later this week, early next week, he's going to face hitters in a simulated game. Good. He's going to have to go out and make a couple of minor league outings. Got to think that's the case. He hasn't pitched since June. I think June 10th or 11th. So that's a couple of months plus. So it's possible he's back by the end of the season, right? If he faces live guys at August 1st, then he takes 5 days and makes a start, then he takes 5 days and makes a start, they could theoretically call him back mid-ish, 18th of September, something like that. Might only be at 65, 70 pitches, though. Would they give him another outing at the minor leagues, push him back to the 23rd? If they're pushing him back to the 23rd, the season's almost over. Do they even do it? So, bottom line is it's going to be close. But the good news is he's moving in the right direction for those of you in keeper leagues. It would be nice to see the reports continue to be positive. It would be nice to see him get out there on the hill and look good for those people that do have him in keeper leagues looking into next season. So we don't have to just hope over the offseason. Well, they say he's fine. Moving in the right direction. We'll see if there's enough time. On the hitting side of things, before we talk football in about 10 minutes with Tyler Beaker, not good news with Luis Robert. And bottom line is that his season could potentially be over. Reading the tea leaves, I'm going to suggest his season is over. He's got a grade 2 hamstring strain. A month time, rough estimate there. The season's barely got a month left. So possible we see him like the last week of the season. It's possible we see him for half of September if he has some miraculous recovery. But let's also remember, this team's got nothing to play for. They don't want to blow him out. No reason to push him. There's no reason for anything other than, all right, wasn't a great year. Go get healthy. We'll pay you $20 million next year and see what happens, right? Because they do have 2 club options for him. I think it's $20 million each of the next 2 years. They didn't trade him. There's a lot of speculation that would happen. Maybe it still happens in the offseason for the White Sox. But it's very likely for the second year in a row, he will fail to play 115 games, which is not good. He hit 14 home runs last year, 14 home runs this year, 47 runs scored last year, 52 runs this year, almost identical. 224 batting average last year, 223 batting average this year, almost identical. So now, again, we have to realize here that we've got 225 games of a former fantasy superstar. 220 games, 225 games, whatever it is. What is it? Let me get the exact number. 210 games. 210 games the last 2 years of a former fantasy superstar hitting 220 with a 290 on base percentage. That is horrible. Horrible. Okay, we all get mad at Adolis Garcia. The only difference between Adolis Garcia and Luis Robert is he runs now. Running is a huge thing, and it does boost his outlook tremendously. But the bat has not been good for 2 years now. 14 home runs, 53 RBIs. Ugh. Did steal 33 bases, a career best. So he's stolen 20 bases in 3 consecutive years. Stole 33 bases this year, so there'll be a lot of talk next year about him going 2020. Maybe some people will even say, well, if everything comes together, he can go 30-30. He's hit 38 home runs before. Stole 33 bases this year. In theory, sure. But he's only played 115 games a single time in his career. Something to think about with Luis Robert. Rough. So, by the way, let's look at the White Sox outfield real quickly with Robert being down. We're likely to see Andrew Benintendi out there on a consistent basis. Brooks Baldwin probably takes over in center field. Michael Tauchman in right field. They got Will Robinson and Michael Taylor floating around to give them some depth there. So they, nothing exciting in the fantasy space whatsoever. And it doesn't profile as anyone there being a help. So if you lost Robert, you got to look somewhere else besides the White Sox. Rafael Devers had 4 hits last night. Drove in 5 runs, had a couple of home runs. And, I wanted to check back in with Devers because he was a huge talking point here when the Giants traded for him. All the concerns about, even before that, was he going to play first base for the Red Sox? Would they trade him? They did trade him, all the talk. He's played 16 games at first right now. So, barring something crazy, he's going to play 20 games there this season. He'll qualify at first base and not just DH, which is terrific heading into next season. The Giants have Bryce Eldridge, their number 1 prospect on the offensive side of things, who technically is a first baseman, but they apparently want Devers to be their first baseman. That either means Eldridge goes to DH or they move him to the outfield. We'll see what they do there. But they obviously want Devers to be healthy and comfortable. Eldridge, by the way, is the two-way player. He doesn't pitch anymore, but he threw 97, 8 miles an hour in high school. So he could do both. He probably won't. Devers, by the way, who again has had that success this season playing some defense. Actually, I've seen some highlights of him playing defense. I actually got a chance to go to the game the other night. He's not doing bad at first base. Like he's picking that up. And so I don't know what the hell happened with the Red Sox, but he's done a decent job here. I've seen some reporting saying, well, he's kind of had a lackluster season, and he's hitting 258, which is not good. That's 27 home runs, 89 RBIs. The last 3 years, he's hit 27, 33, and 28 home runs. Had 88, 183 RBIs. He's got a whole month left. He's going to go 30-100. I don't think that's lackluster. He's got a 377 on base percentage, which actually would be a career best. That's not lackluster. His production with the Giants, though, I think you could say that's been a little disappointing. He's hitting 240. He's got a 796 OPS. But he does have 12 home runs, 30 RBIs, 30 runs scored in 60 games. So, again, we're talking about a guy who's been down with the Giants and basically been a 30-80-80 guy. So there's still time for him to find it here down the stretch. But I think that, again, the most exciting news about Devers is the fact that he is absolutely playing first base, which will get him a position heading into 2026. Mark Vientos hit another home run last night. And, this guy has been gone all season. Has not been usable. Has been disappointing. It's been a huge letdown. Last 15 games, his OPS is over 1,000. His last 15 games, he's gone deep 6 times. All of a sudden, Mark Vientos is getting it done. And he's forcing himself into the lineup on a consistent basis for the Mets. And, you look at his seasonal numbers here, 23% strikeout rate is great. And we talked about this earlier. We haven't talked about him much lately, but we talked about it earlier in the season with Vientos. I almost worried, and I mentioned this on the show directly, that he was trying to make contact to the point that it was diminishing his ability to damage the baseball. And that's something that everyone deals with. And you look at his strikeout rate coming into the season like 30%. And we talk about this all the time. You strike out 30% of the time, you're not hitting 266 like he did last year, right? So my guesstimate was that he was trying to increase putting the ball in play. Now, we sit here toward the end of the season, a month left. His O-swing, his chase rate is exactly the same as last season. So the strikeout rate's down. He's not chasing. That's good, right? That's good news. First pitch strike rate is way down too, which is interesting. So it's like it seems like he's being more patient too. So again, this is a good combination of factors. Now let's look at his hit chart dispersal in terms of the dispersal. His pull rate, a little bit down. Okay. Center field rate's about the same as always. Opposite field rate, about the same. So, this is actually a thing that overall would work. Launch angle's up about 1.5%. Okay. Barrel rate is down, but still in double digits. The hard hit rate is actually better than last season. Exit velocity actually slightly better than last season. So all of a sudden, Mark Vientos looks like a guy that we were hoping would hit 30 home runs this year after hitting 27 last year. So if you've got Vientos, feeling really good about him now. If he's on the waiver wire, rectify that because that's a mistake. He is rolling right now, and he looks right now like the guy a lot of people thought he would be at the start of the season. And finally, before we talk some football with Tyler Buecher, we talked about Adolis Garcia on Monday. I think we might have talked about him on Tuesday. Might have talked about him on Wednesday. We're talking about it again on Thursday. What is going on with Adolis Garcia? Like, this guy has been a mess. He's been an absolute mess this season. And there is, let's not, I said this earlier in the week we were talking about him. It's like, I have him in multiple leagues. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not disappointed. I also said that, look, this guy could go, 2015. Like, that's in play, which, all things considered, it wouldn't be terrible. We talked about the fact that, he went out there and I'm looking at the numbers. He had a home run 6 games ago. Then he stole a couple of bases 5 games ago. Then he had a couple of hits 2 games ago. And then last night he had 4 hits, 2 doubles, a home run, 5 RBIs. Like, what's going on all of a sudden? So his last 5 games, he's batting .450 with a .596 WOBA. He's driven in 8 runs. He scored 6 runs. He's hit 2 home runs and stolen 3 bases. He returned from the injury list. Wow. We haven't seen this guy all season long. We have seen this guy in the past. And there's always the hope because he is obviously hot here coming off the injury list. Wyatt Langford has been swinging a really good bat for a couple of weeks now for the Rangers. You've got Corey Seager there. Well, Jock Peterson's starting to hit again. Like, there's always a chance. Remember how many times we talked about the Rangers and how they could have this great offense this season? Hasn't happened. Is it going to happen in September? Even without Marcus Semien, who's out with an injury? We'll see. But I'm starting to get a little bullish on Adolis Garcia and his potential outlook for the month of September. And I wouldn't have said that 10 days ago. All right, so that's a talk of baseball. We'll do that again tomorrow. We'll talk baseball the first half of the show. Then we will discuss football in the second half of the show. It's a Friday, so we'll talk to Russell Clay about all of that. But today, it's a Thursday. And on Thursdays, we talk to our main man, our Mr. Best Ball over at fantasyguru.com, our wide receiver guru, if that's the right way to say it over at fantasyguru.com, but not a guy that's limited to best ball or wide receivers. Okay, so don't make that mistake. He's got articles that are going up at FG. He's often on the live stream on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time at fantasyguru.com. He's always in Discord answering questions. He's updating his auction draft book for those people that are still drafting or getting 2 drafts. Yeah, you know him. He's Tyler Buecher. The bearded one joins the bearded one. Let's bring in Tyler. How you doing today, Tyler?
Oh. Muted. Darn it. I'm doing good right here. Excited for the final drafts that I've got here undergoing. Not too many left here. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of us are excited to get those drafts underway, but I'm really excited to start diving into week 1 content. I want to get my hands in the X's and O's and start writing the good stuff.
Yeah, John's got a question here, one that we've seen many, many times, and I know it's in jest. It's got the 12th pick in a draft tonight. Tell him who to pick each round. It will be nice to move beyond those type of questions, right? To, like you're saying, actually get to matchups and everything. Then, of course, 6 weeks into the season, we'll be angry that we're having to answer stardom sit-ins every 10 minutes. But it's nice. I know how this goes. It's nice to be at the kind of that finish line, right? Where it's like, okay, we've done all this work and we've talked about the same thing for 3 months. Let's get on to something new.
Absolutely. It feels like we've been ready for this NFL season for ages. It's time to put the pencils down. I'm ready to go into week 1 here, man.
By the way, if you need to pick your pencil up because you just started, go to fantasyguru.com and click that support. What am I trying to say? Click the buy tab. Get over there to the site. Click the subscribe tab. Get signed up for any of the products: seasonal football, DFS football, wagering football. And remember the word is subscribe, because apparently I forgot that word. It's a very tough word in the English language. Okay, Tyler, we talked yesterday with Armando Marsal about the news with Rashee Rice and his suspension, because it was or 2 days ago, because Rich Mileto yesterday, excuse me, because it was basically breaking as we were talking. I wanted to get your take on it, just to give it to the audience here. I know you're going to say, well, he's out the first 6 games, but what? How are we handling Rice? Are we dropping him down the draft boards? Did you have a suspension baked in? 6 games about what you thought? Are you happy that it's at the start of the season so we know we'll have him in the fantasy playoffs? Talk us through the situation with the Chiefs.
Yeah, the positive here is that we know when the suspension takes place and the duration, which wasn't confirmed prior to yesterday's news. 6 games is still notable. It's a large amount of time to miss in a 17-week NFL size sample, but it's not the 10 games that it was rumored to be. So that's at least a positive there. We also get Rice back when we need him most, which will be when the NFL bye weeks start picking up and the fantasy playoffs, the most important part. Initially, that wasn't the case. We weren't sure about that in terms of, well, we knew it would be several weeks into the season, but we didn't know when the duration of the suspension would have lasted. And it's also notable that he's coming off injury, so it gets him some extra time to get healthy, an extra 6 weeks to get back to 100%. I think he's going to hit the ground running. I'm very comfortable taking him where he's going right now in high-stakes leagues where it's at that round 6-7 turn, because at that 6-7 turn, you're able to already build a good foundation of wide receivers early in your drafts. I've been adding him also to best ball squads where I have 3 surefire, healthy guys that I'm not worried about suspension or anything like that. Over on Drafters, where again, we're looking for the most points weeks 1 through 17 over on Drafters, which is only 61% filled. This thing is still going to get a bunch of overlay. Go draft. But I'd really like Rice there. I will say when I do add Rice, I'm generally fading guys that I think also have some injury concerns or suspension concerns. So I won't pair Rashee Rice on a team with Jordan Addison or Jauan Jennings, a guy that might have an injury as we enter the season. That's generally how I'm handling the Rice situation. But I'm still actively getting him because I think he can be a league winner. We saw it last year, the first 3 weeks, that the target share was immense. The first read rate was ludicrous, and the fantasy production was there. So I'm chasing that.
By the way, if you go to drafters.com, you can use the promo code. We have a new one, Elite Reload 20. Elite Reload 20. If you haven't re-upped, that's a 20% code. Elite Reload 20. And as Tyler said, there's lots of overlay. Get over there. You got a chance to win. Let's talk about my team, the Niners here. They're a disaster for a variety of reasons. And, we can all say, oh, it's going to be fine. And they're hopeful. They still don't know what the situation is with Jauan Jennings and the calf, right? They're hopeful. We got the word they're hopeful he plays in week 1. Well, here's the problem. Trent Taylor's on the IR. Jacob Cowing's on the IR. Brandon Ayuk's on the PUP list. Demarcus Robinson is suspended. Sky Moore is not only going to be active in week 1, he might have a role in that. Like, that's how bad the Niners receiving core is right now. Like, what are we doing? If you're drafting this weekend, is Jauan Jennings on a no-fly zone? Is there somebody else besides Ricky Pearsall that we're looking at? Like, what are we doing here? We don't even know who's going to be on the field.
No, I mean, they just added Marquez Valdez-Scantling yesterday. And the 3 healthy bodies are Pearsall, Sky Moore, and MVS. That's what they're looking at right now for practices.
Not good.
So, yeah, that face is well-warranted. I'll note Seattle plays San Francisco in the season opener, so we get a little revenge game for MVS there after teasing him all summer long. Nope, we're cutting bait with you. I'm looking at this wide receiver depth, and the only thing I'm thinking about right now is taking the under in that San Francisco-Seattle game. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Right.
Second thing is for redraft, those that are still drafting, I'm still interested in Jauan Jennings with this calf injury because we saw last year he was just incredibly productive when healthy. He's also been nursing this calf injury for a while where this isn't like something that just popped up like Achan's injury and with his calf. This is something I think it's like 6 weeks old at least it's been a minute. So that's good. I mean, he's spending time recovering, quote unquote, or I don't know. The calf contract injury quotes are very interesting and kind of amusing unless you're a Niners fan. But I am raising Pearsall in my drafts. I think I have him as a top 60 selection now. I'm just trying to leave my drafts, though, with one of these guys, Pearsall, Jennings, or I'll even throw George Kittle in the mix, where these are the 3 guys that I think are going to pick up a lot of work given how thin this unit is behind them. It's tough to not leave your fantasy drafts with one of these guys because I just think they're in for a boatload of volume and they're cheap. You don't have to spend a lot to get them.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com, joins us every Thursday at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. With Denver, we've talked a lot about Courtland Sutton. We've talked a lot about Mark Ingram. At the receiving core, though, there's, some people are Marvin Mims guys and gals. Some are Pat Bryant. Maybe people are looking at Troy Franklin. I know Mims isn't at 100%, but he's expected to play in week 1. If you're still drafting, what direction are you going as that second wide receiver behind Courtland Sutton? Conventional wisdom says it's Marvin Mims. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, he's got a groin injury right now. It's not considered serious by anybody, beat reporters or the official team. I see no reason to adjust rankings with Mims in terms of if you're afraid of that or you just got that news. To me, he just remains a bench stash, kind of like that wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 status where we're only ideally playing him during bye weeks. He's also got one of the weirdest production profiles. Last year, it was a lot of manufactured screens and touches or YOLO deep bombs. Like it was no in between. For that reason, he's like a very volatile click. And I've frankly been more prone to clicking his name in best ball where I don't have to worry about that volatility. Right. But if you want to go in the redraft direction, sure, I get it. I mean, Sutton's on the wrong side of 30. Perhaps Mims gets a bit more involved. I just think Sean Payton does goofy stuff with his wide receivers. And that's for that reason I have a tough time going overboard with any of these players that we're going to talk about, Mims, Pat Bryant, or Troy Franklin. Bryant, I think you can make the argument as a final round click in your redraft leagues. He's got the capital. He's got the buzz, the Michael Thomas comps.
Yep.
But I don't know. I see him more as a final round selection where if you don't like what you see 2 weeks in, you just drop and move on. But to be honest, I usually keep the end of my benches filled with running backs. So he's probably not going to be a guy that finds his way onto my squad. And then Franklin, I think he's just off the redraft radar. He's a bit too much of a deep play, more of a DFS showdown kind of name to remember.
Tyler, we had another move that I wanted to get your comments on from both sides, actually. Adam Thielen goes back to Minnesota. Yesterday I said, look, good move for Minnesota. I don't care in the fantasy space. Maybe he's a thing the first couple of weeks with Jordan Addison out, but I don't look at Adam Thielen and think, he's scoring 8 points a week, right? That's how I see that. Is that how you see that? And would you, whether you do or agree or disagree, would you make Thielen a late round pick, thinking that he's going to be the number 2 guy for 3 weeks here with Addison out, or is that crazy talk?
Well, I'll say the Vikings needed help in the short term. We know Addison's out 3 games. We also know Jalen Naylor's injured. We also know Ty Felton has been slow to catch on, and he's also injured too. Yep. So adding a guy like Thielen makes a lot of sense for a team that's coming off a 14-3 record. They want to continue to do well in the NFC North, and they don't want to start slow. They get a plug-and-play option here with Thielen, who can play inside, can play outside. I think he's honestly more like a DFS value selection than a player that I really want to prioritize in redraft leagues, right? Because I think it's going to be a short window of when we want to roster him in our starting lineups. And if I don't have wide receivers that I am comfortable with in a start-sit format, generally I'm not going to roster them. I'd rather just go toward running backs, knowing that there's a lot of volatility at the wide receiver position, and a lot of those guys are there's not a huge difference when you look at these guys that are usually available on your waivers. That's just the way it is. These guys are more volatile. They don't get the consistent target shares. And we're almost trying to play versus a matchup versus target expectation game, which can often lead you chasing your tail. So I think Thielen's best suited for squads where maybe you punt wide receiver, maybe you have a lot of rookie wide receivers, and Thielen could be that starter for the first 3 weeks. But I mean, I think there's a good shot that the way that JJ McCarthy plays, we could see a lot of TJ Hawkinson seeing that short underneath the volume instead of Thielen, where Thielen's going to be, I don't know. I think there's a lot more variability there, especially with him being new to the team, coming in so late as well.
If Thielen had stayed with Carolina, it's very easy to say, look, he's getting 6, 7, 8 targets a week with Carolina and his offense. What does Carolina do now? Obviously, Tedero McMillan is the guy. We know that. He'll get the volume now. There's no reason to look at him and think it's otherwise. But what are we doing? Leggett, Coker, David Moore, like, who's the next guy up behind McMillan? Is there somebody here that you're interested in? I know we like the coaching staff and that Young showed some better tape in year 2 than in year 1. But, what's your appetite for drafting a second wide receiver for Carolina? And if you are going to do that, who's it going to be?
Yeah, for me, it would be Coker, who has been announced as the guy that will take over in the slot, which is good. I mean, that's what Thielen's role was, that the 6 to 8 target volume we were talking about, something that Coker could see. We saw last year in 6 games where he and Bryce Young both played, and Coker was on the field for, I think it was 50 plus or 60 plus snaps, that Coker had an 18% target share, a 24% first read rate. 11.5 fantasy points per game. That's decent. That's flex worthy. So he's the guy that I really would be prioritizing, given that the role that McMillan's going to play will be more of the intermediate to deep range. And I think we're going to see more layups for Coker, where he's probably making more sense in a full PPR format. I just can't invest in Xavier Legette in his gimmicky role. It just isn't something that I will do. So give me Coker. He's actually 3 rounds cheaper than Legette right now in Drafters Best Ball ADP, and I think has more upside.
When we go to Pittsburgh, we got another situation kind of like Denver that we were talking about earlier. We know who the one is. It's DK Metcalf. Aaron Rodgers is there. He's got a long history of peppering, a couple of guys. Okay. So we got DK Metcalf. Now Metcalf, he has had some injuries here too. So, there could be opportunities for someone else not only to step up, but significantly step up if he were to miss time. There's kind of 2 main names there. It's Calvin Austin. It's Roman Wilson. And there's kind of been a back and forth. Like, there's been reports this way, reports that way. Some drafts, one guy goes ahead of the other and the other, vice versa. Roman Wilson is the guy that's starting to get a little heat here. Would he be your second choice behind Metcalf, or would you lean Austin?
See, I'm a little hesitant to say anybody's name here, where it wouldn't shock me if it were actually Jonnu Smith. That was the guy that turned into that second top pass catching target here. And if I'm spending a late round pick on a wide receiver, I'm usually not, like I said, I usually prefer my fantasy benches with running backs.
Right.
It's not going to be an Arthur Smith depth wide receiver here. We got the low pass rate, the low play volume, limited opportunities. Mm-hmm. I just think these guys are probably going to be the first ones to go off your squad when you suddenly need to flip and rearrange your fantasy benches. So I'm just going to not click these guys' names. They're fine in best ball if you want to take some stabs, sure. But I would really only do it in squads where you've already got Metcalf, and you can add you could add Aaron Rodgers and one of these guys to create a little Pittsburgh combo. But that's it.
With the Rams, we've got Matthew Stafford, and we know that Matthew Stafford's not a QB1. He's only a super flex 2 quarterback guy. We know that. Okay, we're all accepting that. His back, they've got Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a fine backup quarterback, better than a lot of teams' backup quarterbacks, but he's not the same type of quarterback with Stafford. So this is not really a Matthew Stafford question, really. But let's ask it. Would you take him as your second quarterback in a Superflex league at this point? And does the concerns we have with him, even with Garoppolo in support, change your opinion on Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, guys that people are obviously expecting to start every week?
I don't think I would at this point in terms of the answering the question of taking Stafford. I just think there's guys I've got in like a group of a tier with Stafford, like Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, Tua. I'd take any of those 4 over Stafford, I think, at this point now. It's scary, man. Like, back injuries are no joke. I've had them, and Stafford's had recurring injuries with his back. He's 37, but he's got the history of these back problems. I saw a report from Dan Graziano from ESPN where it wasn't surprised to see Jimmy Garoppolo come in either sporadically mid-game out of necessity for Stafford, or to start for him in a sporadic spot start at some point this season. So for that reason, I think Stafford's a risky selection if you're trying to go in a super flex format. I will say that he still can sling it. Last year he was productive despite the fantasy production not following. He was quarterback 16 in EPA and completion percentage over expectation composite. He was top 12 in offensive success rate. Those are plays that generated EPAs above 0. So he's still able to move the ball well. We just saw a lot of plays last year where it was either Kupp or Nacua getting tackled like inside the 5, and Kyren Williams just banged it in for a bunch of touchdowns. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to see a big drop off from Nacua and Adams if we were to see Garoppolo in for a series or 2 or for a game or 2. I still think these guys are well worth the clicks at their current cost, despite each one getting a little bit of a drop down in ADP because of these back concerns with Stafford. I'm still kind of interested in both these guys because we know where the targets are going. It's consolidated, and a healthy Stafford, which again, they're saying he's healthy, but he's on track for week 1. So we'll see if that's showmanship or if that's true very shortly here. I'm just honestly really proud of Les Snead for not saying F them draft picks and actually acquiring 2 round 1 picks entering 2026 so they can move up the board and get their quarterback of the future in 2026 NFL draft.
Yeah, they've not done a lot of drafting, have they? They don't like first round picks there at the Rams for some reason. Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. We got multiple situations where it's really interesting. We're a week out, right? And there's a bunch of situations that we've talked about the wide receiver position where it's kind of like, what's going on behind the top dog? We've got multiple scenarios across the land at the running back position where we have no idea what's going on. Cleveland's one of those situations. Texans are another one. We've got Joe Mixon, who is going to be fine, and there's a little bit of concern, and then there was no concern, and then there was more concern, and now there's a lot of concern. This has really changed with Joe Mixon. We're hearing that he was trying alternative means of, medicine in the off season. He's starting the season on the PUP list. He's going to miss at least 4 weeks. Is that going to be 4 weeks? Is it going to be 8 weeks? Is his career over? We don't know what the hell's going on with Joe Mixon right now. So how are we handling this backfield with the Texans, especially for those people that haven't drafted and for those people that are on the way, that are looking at the waiver wire? Because I've already seen multiple people say, hey, Dameon Pierce is on the waiver wire. Hey, Woody Marks is on the waiver wire. What are we doing with the situation? Nick Chubb is going to be the starter, quote unquote. But how does this play out?
It's tough. I mean, we've seen consistent drumbeats of terrible reports coming out surrounding Mixon all summer. I'm fully fading Mixon in drafts. If you yet to draft right now, I have zero interest in selecting him because I think he's going to be a headache, most likely a PUP candidate. And then we look behind him. Nick Chubb hasn't been particularly effective since his injury, which is tough to come back from. And then the other guys have zero interest in the other depth pieces from a start-sit format. I just think you're going to be we're not into bye weeks yet. There's no real need for me to chase Woody Marks or Dameon Pierce right now. I just have far more conviction in Nico Collins and this offense leaning on the pass game a bit more rather than reverting to an ineffective run game behind an offensive line that's been reshaken up and retooled this offseason. We have no idea how it's going to come together here this offseason. And once we enter the regular season, and whether or not they actually gel well and are able to perform this power gap scheme that they want to run.
Let me ask you this too, because this has come up a couple of times. Some people draft the team and they're like, all right, I did a good job, I'm set. Some people draft the team and I was like, well, maybe I can improve it a little bit. And they're already looking to do those improvements. I'm seeing questions in the Discord over at fantasyguru.com. Should I move from player A to player B or player C to player D? And it's like, well, we have one guy 2 spots higher in the rankings. The one guy's 2 spots lower in the rankings. I'm not going to tell you not to take the guy that's ranked higher because, again, there's a reason we have the guy ranked higher. But what do you recommend? Is that, it's like, because it's one thing to say, oh, someone didn't draft DK Metcalf. Well, okay. Someone didn't draft Woody Marks. So how do you handle that? Because people are always looking for that edge and, the season hasn't even begun and you look at people's waiver wire and some teams have made 7 moves already. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, part of it is relying on having some conviction in the clicks you made while you were on the clock, but some of it also is the benefit of hindsight where maybe the draft didn't unfold the way you wanted it to. Maybe you find yourself with some wide receivers that are sketchy, or you're starting Josh Palmer as your wide receiver too because you ran into some heavy RB starts. I think you should take it on a case-by-case basis, really. I don't want to give blanket advice here, but for the most part, I'm confident in whatever I've done in a draft where I don't feel the need to constantly monitor things. But there will be a hype piece that comes around on Twitter. Pat Bryant made an awesome catch and touch in a camp, and Marvin Mims is banged up. Oh, should I go get Pat Bryant right now?
Right.
Well, he didn't get drafted in your league for a reason. Like, he's kind of that first in, first out kind of waiver fodder. Right. So leave it as it is. I wouldn't do too much maneuvering unless you find that the draft just really got away from you and you need to do some salvaging. But other than that, wouldn't really be doing too much. I'd also advise if you really punted defense or kicker and you got guys you just didn't care about and you're able to maybe drop them if you're not really super interested in them and they were just random clicks at the end of the draft. Mm-hmm. Maybe the beers caught up to you and you just finally clicked, didn't care. Yeah, give me Arizona. I don't care. Maybe you finally drop those guys and pick up a speculative stash right now where there are some injuries that we're still kind of getting news on that are coming out of the end of training camp and preseason, where it may make sense to have an extra running back or wide receiver in formats that allow it. And then next Thursday, we come back here and we finally drop those deep what the heck dart throws and get that roster ready for week 1. But that would be another advice I'd offer for some leagues. It just depends on your league, though.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com, joins us every Thursday, 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Let's go to those couple of guys that don't matter, okay? But in the Dynasty or Keeper League, just to get your thoughts, because we're trying to be, cover all our bases here. Audric Estime signs the Eagles. I mean, in theory, he's a younger version of A.J. Dillon, who's I've never been a huge fan of. Saquon Barkley's not getting any younger. Okay, so Audric Estime to the Eagles. CEH to the Chiefs, which that one to me is really strange, but he's there. They're apparently in Kansas City collecting all veteran running backs that have ever had ties to anyone on the coaching staff or the team. Estime or CEH, if you're in a dynasty or keeper league and you got that spot at the end, are these guys that interest you, or are you going in some other direction? Doesn't matter.
Not in a keeper league where you have to really be selective on which guys you hold on to. But in a dynasty format, if I've already held or drafted Estime, I'll continue to hold him.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's a round 5 pick. I like the profile coming out of Notre Dame. Just kind of started his career on the wrong foot. And Sean Payton's one of those coaches where if you start your career on the wrong foot, you are consistently blackballed for whatever reason. I can't get that healthy scratch of the postseason for him out of my mind, where he just did not suit up, despite that run offense having zero push all year. They had one of the best blocking run lines, yet nobody for that unit could do anything on the ground. So maybe a fresh scene is best for Estime, but he's the guy I would hold on to. CEH, we've kind of already been around the block a bit too many times with him, where it's time. he was a dart throw at best anyway.
Golf Getaways has got a question here. He's got a keeper league, half point PPR, and he's wondering Isaiah Pacheco of the Chiefs or J.K. Dobbins of your favorite Sean Payton. So it's a perfect question from Golf Getaways here. As a keeper, who are we going with, Dobbins or Pacheco in a half point PPR?
I would go with Pacheco solely because we think he has the ability to be the RB1 on that squad. He hasn't really been a player I've been targeting coming off injury. That leg just did not look great upon return, but he's got the whole summer to come back. There have been some clips of him getting back to his angry running style. So he would be the player I would select. We also have, it's the Chiefs. It's a good offense to invest in. And given all the hodgepodge of washed veterans that are on that squad, I think Pacheco easily climbs to the top of the depth chart.
Kareem Hunt, Elijah Moore, CEH, Katoni Ingram. There's a
lot of Mitchell.
Lots of veteran, as Tyler was talking about. Tyler, what about the tight end position? I got 3 names I want to run by you. They're all kind of, we waited at the tight end a little too long. He's our tight end 1, right? And again, I don't recommend taking 2 tight ends in most leagues unless you have very deep benches or it's a tight end premium league. So this is more of, oh man, it's the 13th round. I don't have a tight end. Who do I go with? Jake Ferguson's the first name. A lot of people are getting hyped about this offense with Dallas and what could happen. But of course, we're talking mostly about Prescott and the wide receivers. What do you think about Jake Ferguson?
Yeah, I think he's fine. We know that the Dallas Cowboys want to pass a lot more with Schottenheimer here. He's projected to be the 3rd target in what should be a pass-heavy offense. He signed a 4-year, $52 million contract extension this offseason with $30 million guaranteed. So don't forget about that they want him to be a part of their plans over the last 2 years in games with Dak healthy. Remember, Dak missed half of last year. So 2023 and 2024, he's averaged 6.5 targets per game in those games with Dak, 10.4 fantasy points per game. That's decent. That's what we're getting when we're waiting until round 12 or 13 for a tight end. And that's fine. We know what we're getting. I think he's a solid pick, high floor. And if we see this passing attack miss some time with either CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens missing some time, I think he's got some contingent upside to be that number 2 option in the passing attack here for Dallas. So I think he's probably one of the best double-digit round tight ends you could probably select.
Speaking of Dallas, what about Dallas Goedert of the Eagles? We know that A.J. Brown missed some game action last year. This year he's been slow to get going. He's not 100%. Devontae Smith has missed some game action. They don't really have much depth at the wide receiver position to the Eagles, right? So Dallas Goedert could, in theory, become attractive, but he seems to just settle in as an 8-point-a-week guy. And I don't know if that really changes. But again, if you've waited a long time, is he a viable dart throw later in a draft?
Yeah, I will say that I have got Ferguson 1 spot ahead of Goedert. I prefer him flat out, mainly because of the pass rates. Dallas, I think, will be top 10. Philadelphia, we're not expecting them to be bottom dwelling as they were last year. I'm expecting a little bit of a step forward, but not a great one. And that's the biggest hurdle for Goedert. He's not only playing on a offense that doesn't throw a ton, he's also got 2 massive target hogs, and A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith ahead of him, 2 guys that combined for over 50% of the targets. Last year, though, Goedert was great when healthy and on the field. He was one of the best separators at the position, number 8 among all tight ends, and he was one of the most efficient guys. He was tight end 2 in yards per out run. So there's a lot to like in terms of the profile. It's just the volume is the biggest hurdle. But like Ferguson, he also has contingent upside. And AJ Brown and Devonta Smith have both been banged up this summer.
Mm-hmm.
I think both are still kind of banged up right now, if I'm not mistaken. So Goedert to me is a fine click if you punt the position and just wait till your final rounds. I did that in my home league. I just waited forever at tight end after seeing everybody else gobble them up. I'm like, yeah, they're all a dime a dozen at this point. I'm going to wait until my final rounds and take Goedert, and I'm fine with that.
I heard someone on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio a couple weeks ago say that they couldn't understand why there was no love for Zach Ertz, and that like Zach Ertz was their favorite player to draft this season. And I went, ooh, okay. Zach Ertz came out of nowhere last season. He had his most catches since 2019, his most yards since 2019, his most touchdowns since 2018. So the numbers are pretty good last year. But realize I said all those numbers, that was before COVID. That was a long time ago. In theory, this is another situation, right? We got Terry McLaurin in the house here, but we spent all this time talking about the backfield with the Commanders. We haven't talked much about the receiving core. Deebo Samuel, is he going to play 6 games, 16 games? Zach Ertz, easily behind the other 2 tight ends we talked about, not behind the other 2 tight ends we talked about. Your thoughts, Tyler?
Yeah, the Commanders' final 53 was super interesting to me. They ended up just grabbing 5 wide receivers, 3 of which are slot guys with Deebo, Jalen Lane, the rookie, and Luke McCaffrey from last year. So I think we're going to see a lot of redundancy and overlap there where they may not see the field behind Deebo, where I could see it would make more sense for me to see more of Ertz out there as that 4th pass catching option because it's not as redundant. And he's a pretty sure-handed guy over the middle of the field. Super high catch rate last year as well, like you mentioned. Cleared a 20% target share in over half of his games, which is notable. But the No Yak Zach, that nickname, that moniker, it still stands. I mean, he's at the end of his career. He's doing a lot of horizontal breaking routes where they're just kind of quick drags that Jaden Daniels trusts in, and Cliff Kingsbury likes to run the horizontal raid that is also monikered. I like Ertz. I think he's fine, but I think he's better as a tight end 2 in best ball or a usable DFS punt in some weeks. Not really a guy that I really am excited to click for redraft leagues because I think there's a chance we see one of the younger guys maybe carve out a bit of a workload as the season progresses.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. We'll continue to give advice like this throughout the season here on the show on Thursdays. We'll obviously be around all weekend heading into week 1. Articles coming on. What's your week 1 look like? What's every week look like? What's your schedule once the season begins, Tyler? What do the folks have to look forward to over at fantasyguru.com?
All right. I don't have this written down, so I'm going to go off the top of the dome here. Tuesdays, we'll be doing a waiver wire article looking at players to add, players to drop. We'll also be doing a Tuesday evening roster coach live stream, 7 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday, where you guys are welcome to come join the show and ask which players should we be targeting off waivers? How would you guys adjust our roster? Those are really fun and really in-depth, so I highly suggest getting in there. Wednesdays, I'll be doing a wide receiver versus coverage article where I'm looking at, okay, what do the Bengals play this week? Oh, it's a team that plays a lot of cover too. Okay, which of their wide receivers operates best between T. Higgins versus Jamar Chase against cover two? And I'm kind of writing up things like that, looking at schemes to target and schemes to kind of avoid in terms of not necessarily redraft, more of the DFS lens, but it does kind of fall under that same umbrella. Thursdays, I'll be on this show with you, Ray, every day at 12:30 Eastern. So we'll be chatting that. We'll be talking about some Thursday Night Football preview. I'll also be writing our DFS wide receiver coach article on Thursdays, which is looking at which wide receivers on the slate make sense from a combination of target expectation and price point. Friday, we'll be doing the DFS live stream roster coach. Not roster coach, the DFS live stream show. I'll be hosting that again this year. Very excited for that. We'll break down the entire slate. I'll be having some guests on as well. Saturday, I've got my big game script article where I go game by game, looking at how I project things to play out from a volume and pace of play perspective and which matchups we should be targeting. Sunday, Q&As in the chat. We'll be doing that from 11:30 when we get the final injury reports from around the league reported. We'll be doing that from 11:30 a.m. all the way to lock at 1 p.m. So that's what I'm thinking we got. Yeah, I'm out of breath talking about it. And then all kinds of stuff. I'll constantly be in the Discord as well to answer questions all throughout the week. I do want to start doing like office hours. Maybe I'll be like the 7 a.m. guy for everyone that gets into their office early and wants to chat some football before work gets too hot and heavy. But yeah, I think that's the gist of it. It's quite a bit. I'm excited for it.
I'm more of the guy that you want to talk to when you're tired of working at midday because I live on the West Coast. So Tyler can do the mornings. Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. Excuse me. Got a question here from Jack B. It's a good question, Tyler. Staying in the tight end position. I always feel like having an elite tight end gives me some of the biggest edges to put your team ahead. Why do we always advocate against taking one early? My thought is this. We don't always advocate against taking one early. For me personally, I think there's a difference between early and early. If you want to take a tight end, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, totally fine with that. I don't generally like I'm going to get Brock Bowers or Trey McBride in the 2nd, 3rd round scenario because I feel like I end up falling behind at either the running back or the wide receiver spot as a result of doing that. It does depend if you're in a PPR league. It does depend if you start 2 or 3 wide receivers. But that generally is where I end up, Tyler. I feel like I always end up 1 running back or 1 wide receiver short if I go that tight end versus just waiting 3 or 4 more rounds and getting Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce, that kind of guy. What do you think about this question? Because it's a good one that comes up frequently from Jack.
Yeah, it's a question that we deal with, I think, on an annual basis. And I've always been of the belief where I'd rather go either one of elite quarterback or elite tight end, so I don't fall behind at running backs or receiver. I'm okay taking one of those swings. I don't prefer to do both, though. That's my personal belief. Mm-hmm. I've got plenty of my home leagues where I've got the elite tight end path. I've got Brock Bowers on 2 squads, Trey McBride on another, so I will do that. And I like doing that because I think there is an edge, Jack. Because there are games where Mark Andrews will go 4 for 30 and he won't reach the end zone. There are other games where that 4 for 30 and a touchdown where it doesn't matter. Andrews gets you by. So I like the elite path because I think these guys have some fantastic target expectations, namely Bowers and McBride specifically, because they're super, super consistent. Kittle, I think, is a little bit more volatile in that target volume based on just the offense that he plays in and his role there. But I am very confidently clicking those guys. I just prefer to get them in round 3 where I can get a stable base at RB wide receiver to begin my drafts.
Timone's got a good question here, and it's got Randy of South Park, so we'll have to go to it. It just mentions the guy you talked about too. Tyler, let me get rid of that so I can see your face. He asked the following question: half point PPR 10-team league. Would you trade DJ Hunter and Nick Chubb for Kittle, Rice, and Corum? So we're swapping backup running backs with the Rams. We're gaining Rashee Rice, who could be significant in the second half, and we're getting Kittle, who's a huge addition, but we already got Dallas Goedert. And we were just talking about this. I don't like the 2 tight end thing. If I added Kittle, I don't want Dallas Goedert. So then I'm in a scenario where now am I dropping Dallas Goedert to go pick somebody else up? Can I possibly trade him in a 10-team league? It's a little messy, but what do you think of this question, Tyler?
Is Hunter Travis Hunter or...
Oh, is it DJ? Would you trade DJ Moore, Travis Hunter? Oh, that makes more sense. If that's the case, we're not doing that, are we?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the DJ Hunter side.
Yeah. Sorry, I misread that. I'm an idiot. Yeah, Travis Hunter. You're right. So that would be DJ Moore, Travis Hunter, and Nick Chubb for Kittle, Rice, and Corum. That doesn't make we lose at the running back position. You know, I mean, Hunter and Rice, let's call them even, right? And then it's DJ Moore and Kittle. So, what do you think?
I like the squad as it sits with Amon-Ra, Terry McLaurin, DJ. What is that? DJ
Moore, I guess.
Yeah, DJ Moore. Sorry,
yeah,
I draw a blank on his last name for some reason.
People like to use this. Again, folks, it helps us out. Use full names. Okay, go ahead.
And Travis Hunter. Like I like that 4 as your starting guys, and I'm fine with Goedert at tight end. Like I feel like the Rice thing, the upside play makes sense to me if you have a limited amount of starts, but assuming you don't, I think I'd rather have the depth here. Period. Yeah, I'd rather have the depth here with DJ and Hunter.
I love Randy, by the way. We love you, Randy. I love Randy of South Park. Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. Thanks for your time today, Tyler. We appreciate it. As Tyler said, as I've said, he'll be joining us every Thursday during the regular season. We'll make a plan after the show. In years past, we've had him potentially looking ahead to Thursday Night Football. We'll see if that's the plan. We'll let you know next week. But he's Tyler Beaker. Articles that he mentioned, live streams that he mentioned, chat room that he mentioned. Go to fantasyguru.com. Click the subscribe tab in the top right corner. If you have any questions about anything, send a note to support@fantasyguru.com and let us, including Tyler, help you in 2025. So, Tyler, thanks for your help today. Good luck over the weekend, and we'll talk to you next week on Thursday for week number 1.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Ray.
You got it. He's Tyler Beaker. I'm Ray Flowers. We'll be back here on Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. In an hour, go check out Jeff Manns on the Elite Sports Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. That's Monday through Friday, 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For Tyler, I'm Ray. It's been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.